My name's Amy Greensfelder. I'm an alum of the School of Social Work, and it's a privilege to join you today as the Executive Director of the Institute for Innovation and Implementation. At the Institute, our team works daily to improve outcomes for children and families by partnering with the state agencies, particularly the Social Services Administration and the Department of Juvenile Services. Our team works on research and evaluation, training and technical assistance, implementation, and continuous quality improvement. And I know that's a lot of macro social work buzzwords, but we'll be breaking that down and sharing a little bit about one aspect of our work today. Today, I join you 6 months into the role, and I count myself lucky to be working in community with a dedicated interdisciplinary team. And I'm joined today by Aaron Betsinger, research faculty. Aaron, can you please take a moment to introduce yourself and share a little bit about your work?
Sure. My name is Aaron Betsinger. I'm a research assistant professor at the Institute. I've been at school for going on 13 years in July. And most of the work that I do is with the Maryland Department of Juvenile Services, DJS. And so we work with them. We have a long-standing relationship with them, and we work with them in a couple of different capacities. So the first is that we do work around their service array, including evidence-based services. So these are probably you've heard of programs like MST or FFT, functional family therapy, and multisystemic therapy. I reversed the order there. But we provide some implementation and technical assistance and evaluation support there. So basically, we work with all the different providers that are delivering those services throughout the state. We collect their data. We use that data, clean it up, and present it to them back in dashboard format. And then our awesome implementation team, I'm looking for them, but I think they're over here somewhere. Those folks take that data and they do the translational science work where they're working with providers and making sure that they're understanding their data and using that data to improve their services. And those services are really designed to keep kids out of further system penetration with DJS. So they're trying to keep them, they use those services at the front end for prevention services, and they also use those services for kids who are on probation or who are leaving committed facilities. The other aspect of our work that we do is really around the different case processing that happens at DJS. So juvenile justice is a complex system, and it includes a lot of different decision-making points. And so a lot of the time in those different decision points, they're relying on risk assessment instruments to make those decisions, or at least to help guide the decisions. And so what we do is evaluate those risk assessment instruments, make sure that they're working appropriately as intended, and then we help them revise and monitor those tools and how they're functioning. So Dr. Michael Schlossman is my colleague on that project. He just recently completed a validation of their detention risk assessment instrument, which, as you can probably guess from the name, is designed to assess kids for whether they should be detained. Dr. Schlossman completed that evaluation. The department made some revisions to their tools, and now that tool is now in effect as of February, and Michael and I are continuing to meet with stakeholders and make sure that that tool is functioning appropriately.
Great. And can you please share what drew you into this work to begin with?
Well, I actually never thought that I would be here, and certainly not here. I went to graduate school at University of Maryland, College Park. I got my master's degree and PhD in criminology and criminal justice there. And what I was focused on as a grad student was sentencing. So federal sentencing guidelines were what I was really focused on. I wanted to do work around the death penalty. And then I got my first full-time job working at an institute that's very similar to this institute. And we were doing work with the Administrative Office of the Courts as well as DJS. And that was my first taste of doing work in juvenile justice. And I fell in love with it. And I'm sure many of you in this room have experienced those kind of changes in your career trajectory. And so since then, I've been dedicated to juvenile justice work. And that, to me, if you want to have an impact on criminal justice, you have to start with juvenile justice.
You've now been doing juvenile justice research at the School of Social Work for over 12 years. Can you share a bit about how you've seen the field of juvenile justice and your body of work evolve in that time?
Sure. So, crime and justice are all very politically affiliated, of course. And you can imagine, or you've probably heard, that there's a pendulum that happens associated with the response to crime. And so over time, we've seen that response change as I've worked with the department. Currently, we're very fortunate to work with an agency that's led by a secretary who's very reform minded. Um, but that doesn't mean there's not challenges. And I think those challenges, we're all aware of what they are. Crime is very politicized, it's in the news, it's dominated by narratives that are negative for the most part, and driven by singular anecdotes about individual cases that are extreme. And so our challenge, and that we're working on constantly, is how do we move the needle? How do we break through all of that negative narrative and show the good things that are happening? Because the truth is, most kids who go to DJS are there one time. They're not coming back repeatedly. Um, but it's hard to break through that media narrative and show that that's the truth. So we're constantly working on ways that we can break through. We know people have shorter attention spans now. Um, Reading a 20-page paper on detention risk assessment validation is not everyone's cup of tea. So we're trying to find new ways to break through. Mike, I'm going to keep shouting out Mike, but Mike's interested in bringing podcasts to the fore. We've talked about infographics. If folks in this room have suggestions for ways that we can move the needle, we're definitely open to that. But that's kind of how it's changed over time.
We're very wonky at the Institute, but we also have a sense of humor about our wonkiness. Can you please speak to how the School of Social Work and the Institute have supported the juvenile justice work over the years?
Sure. So I've always felt very supported in working with the juvenile justice system. Anytime I've had ideas for changing the nature of the work we're doing or expanding it in different directions, I've always felt very supported. Of course, doing juvenile justice fits along with our mission at the Institute of helping to achieve better outcomes for children, youth, and families. And with you coming on board, I think that has provided us with a brand new opportunity to reintroduce our work to DJS. So Secretary Schiraldi's only been at the department for a little over a year. With you coming on board, Dean Postma suggested that we do an introduction meeting. That meeting took place in January, and I think the next week I was testifying before the Senate with the secretary about community-based services for kids. So that had a really big impact, and the school was really supportive in trying to make sure that I was ready for that testimony. And yeah, I've been very lucky to feel so supported.
And as we look to the future, what direction do you see this work going over the next few years?
Obviously, we're all impacted and feeling challenged in this moment by the direction that things are taking. Fortunately for us, we are in a situation where we have a very strong relationship with DJS. I expect that relationship will continue to be strong. We are expanding our work. We have a new project that we're beginning soon, which will be looking at their service array and identifying both the contractual and non-contractual services they're using in the state, which will help us identify where there are gaps in services for kids and hopefully make recommendations to them on what kind of services they need to fill those gaps. We're also working with them on bringing on more programs into the work that we're doing around implementation and continuous quality improvement. We're working to bring more students into our projects. We have a student that we're working with now, and we're also forming a partnership with College Park so that we can have graduate students be involved in our work. And we're exploring new things. We're doing more mapping. We're doing podcasts potentially. There's lots of reasons to be excited, even in a time that's otherwise pretty grim.
Well, thank you, Aaron. And I hope that through this, you all learned a little more about our work at the Institute, and we invite you to stay in touch with us. Our contact is up on the screen, as is the link for our brand new hot off the presses Thanks Comms Office website. So you can check out our website, and thank you all for